Just before we get started, I'd just like to remind you that I do have an email subscription list. The link for the list is in the description to this video. It's also on my websites, russleach.com and comicbookblackbelt.com, and also over at onlydeathcansaveus.com. That's the title of my new book. It's a Bronze Age inspired cosmic fantasy romp. So if you like the way comics used to be, full of fun and action, check it out and sign up for the email subscription list. Thanks very much for listening, and now on with the video. Hi there, welcome back to the dojo. I am Russ Leach, I'm the comic book black belt, and this is one of a series of videos where I'm going to talk about this book, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. There are lots of books out there that profess to be able to teach you how to draw comics, and a lot of them are really good. But this is the daddy. This is the book. If you've got one book to teach you how to draw comics, or to help you how to draw comics, this is the one you should have. It's not perfect, but it is very, very close. It also has one of the finest artists ever to grace comics, John Buscema, drawing within its pages, and Stan Lee writing the book. Now, I was very fortunate to be involved in Draw the Marvel Way, which is similar in its approach. I put in there my hints, tips, tutorials of how to draw the Marvel characters. I've been blessed with being able to draw a ton of Marvel characters for Marvel within these pages, and it was 100 issues over just over 4 years. There were some other extremely talented people involved in the book, and it really is a good book in my personal opinion, but it still has not got a patch on this one. So what this series of videos is me effectively going through all the sections, all the lessons, all the chapters of this book, giving you some examples of my artwork that I feel that I've improved, or I've benefited from this book, and how that works for me. And in the chapters where you draw along, I'll be doing some drawings, and hopefully you can draw along with me, and hopefully it'll be of some use to everyone out there, and if nothing else, it'll be an advert for you to go out and buy this book. I'm using a PDF that I got from an educational download. I will put the link to that PDF in the description for each video in the series, but I can't instill enough in you. Go and buy this book and put it on your desk, because it's an absolute must-have. So without further ado, I'll get on with this episode. Okay, so here we go. This is the first episode of the series, and obviously I'll be starting at the start. Here we have the cover, again by the magnificent John Buscema. Just in the cover, you can see so many of the elements that will be discussed as we go through each of the chapters in this book. Just the weight and the natural behaviour and anatomy that's going on this cover is just really fantastic. They go through the title cover there. Just a little bit of a back and forth between Stan Lee and John Buscema, dedicated to John Buscema, the Michelangelo of the comics, which he was, by Stan Lee. Dedicated to Stan Lee, who knows talent when he sees it, John Buscema. Oh well, you win some, you lose some, Stan. So just a bit of joking is very typical of Stan Lee. If you go and actually watch this, the video for How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way on YouTube, you'll see the back and forth between Grumpy John and jovial, always marketing Stan Lee. And just this little dedication. I won't be reading everything out of the book. I'll leave that up to you. You can buy the book and read the whole thing. But just I'll just be reading short excerpts and little bits and pieces that help with the chapters if we're doing any work on it. So, but seriously, folks, dedicated to every wide-eyed guy or gal who has ever held a pencil, pen, or crayon and dreamed of telling fantastic stories through pictures. Why would you not want to be a comic book artist? To everyone who's ever thrilled to the sight of a dazzling drawing and longed to be able to copy it, or better still, to create an original. In short, to everyone and anyone who's ever wanted to be a comic book artist, you're our kind of people. We know just how you feel. You see, we've been there ourselves, Stan and John. It's a bit cheesy, but it's fantastic stuff. So you go through the table of contents. There's a preface. Again, I'll let you read that for yourself. It's suggesting, again, fantastic drawing here. It's suggesting once again just what a master John Buscema was. Indeed, his brother as well, Sal, is a fantastic artist, and so many of the artists around then from the Bronze Age. Anybody who's been watching my channel, anybody who's seen me on Twitter or on Instagram or listened to me talk will know just how much I love that period of comics and why I think it's a very pure period of comics, because it's all about action and fun. Romance, not sex, action, not violence. There's nothing wrong with a good horror comic. There's nothing wrong with a good adult comic. I think they're all great. I've done them myself. I really enjoy doing them. But there's something special about that kind of all ages approach where anyone can read the comic and be taken away to another world and be thoroughly entertained whilst doing it. Pretty much that's what MCU movies do. Again, I look at MCU movies as they're much like Nolan, Batman. They're just a version of these characters, and they're great fun for the movies. But nothing can do it, should I say, like a comic can do it, and like a Bronze Age comic can do it. And that's from where this was written from. That's the period of time. That's the background for it, and it's really the basis of what comics are about, and that's what this book will teach you. So to move on to the next. For our first chapter, the tools and the talk of the trade. So since very few of us draw with just our fingernails, let's start off with what you'll need. Then we've got to make sure we're all speaking the same language. This part's the easiest. So once again, this is a snapshot of the time period it's in. So it's got erasers and pencils and inks and stuff like that. If you draw traditionally, these are all still tools of your trade. I still have my clutch pencil here, and I still have all my pens that I use, inking, and brushes as well. I have brushes here. So I've got all the stuff that I do use for traditional work. But when I'm doing things commercially, that is when I'm trying to get pages out the door, when I'm trying to get an illustration job done, 9 times out of 10, those things are done digitally. For instance, it's got a set square here and a glass jar for washing your brushes and stuff. If you are drawing traditionally, one of these things, just as a tip, is absolutely fantastic. I used to use these 25 years ago when I was doing layouts for retail, and I'd have to draw lots and lots of lines, and these things, parallel lines, these are fantastic for it, absolutely fantastic. And of course the usual things like compasses and set squares and that kind of stuff, but you probably know all this kind of thing, so I'll whip on again. There's a massive set square here. The kind of board that you use, I use Bristol board, for instance, when I'm doing any work, but you can buy set out boards that already have grid layouts printed on them if you so desire. Not something that I bother doing personally, but I can see why people do it. And obviously, tools are super important. You can't see it here, but I've got a light box right next to me as well, and I find that an incredibly important tool. I don't know how much. I imagine those artists like John Buscema, Jack Kirby, Stalin, Ditko, all those people probably didn't have light boxes. They did it the hard way, no doubt about it, and that's why they were masters. But I definitely, and I know a lot of people, have used light boxes, so you can sketch stuff out, and then if you need to, you can photocopy them up and down. You can put them on your light box, and you can put your board over the top, and Bristol board that is, and get an image through and work at it that way. And it's almost like, I've said this before, it's almost like working in layers in Photoshop or in Clip Studio. So it's no different from the actual structure, as it were, of what you're trying to do. It's just the detail of how you get to it. Yeah. So whether you're using a light box with pieces of paper over the top of each other in order to get what you want, or whether you're using layers in Photoshop, makes no difference. All of these things are just tools. The one important thing is you don't go to your tools first. You go to your mind first, and you think about these things and you sketch them out. So don't be led into digital tools just because they're really, for some reason digital tools seem to hook the mind, whether it's a tablet or a phone or like I've got a Wacom here, and the software that comes with it. It tends to pull us in, and people tend to rush to go and do things instead of thinking about their ideas first. And of course, with a pencil in your hand, everything slows down and it forces you to think. And so don't rush to anything just because you have these digital tools. Make sure and think about what you're doing first and plan. And so here we get on to this part, which is basically sort of it's iterating through the terminology that you use for comic books, and some of that may well have changed in the years since, and some of it may feel a little old, but these things are really pertinent when it comes to storytelling. They're really pertinent when it comes to presentation. So whatever they're called now, I think these terms and tags really do express what these aspects of storytelling, sequential art, are all about. So you've got here, I'm just gonna blow this up a little bit so we can see this. The first page of the story with a large introductory illustration is called a splash page. Now I have a couple of splash pages here. Where are we? New folder. So what have I got here? I've got a splash page in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly look for something which I think is a good thing to look at, and that is I'll have a look at the inks. There you go, I've got a splash page there. So I've done my own splash page here. This was for Interceptor Book 2. And you can see it kind of encapsulates everything. It's telling a single point in the story and really bringing you in to that first aspect of the story. Here, of course, they've also got the text over the top of it. And if I actually look at my third page in Only Death Can Save Us, that's a similar thing. You've got the title at the top and you've got the credits at the bottom right there, and it's that pulling you in and getting you into that story. That doesn't have all the text over the top of it because I'm working at the text at the end over the colours. But there's a real world on my example of a splash page. Of course, Kirby did this fantastic splash page here, and you can just see the action, the energy that's involved in that splash page, and getting that across and pulling the reader in. So up to B, that they're talking about lettering. That's really much a design decision. So it's got open letters there and closed letters. C, the copy, which relates to the blurb. The name of the story of this is of course important. These are all things that you'd think were really obvious, okay, but seeing it written down here, it's a really good thing to have. It's talking about speech bubbles, dialogue balloons, arrows, bold words, lettering, that kind of stuff. So it's really worth taking a look at this aspect of your comic book presentation and making sure that it all comes together. It's not just about drawing pretty pictures, about telling a story, and that story incorporates all kinds of things like speech bubbles or special effects. So for instance, not that one, although I have, there we go. So the special effects in this, I've got the sound effects going on at the top and the bottom there, and then the previous page I've got a whoosh coming across. And the other thing I did with this was also consider where the speech panels were as well, and you have to put all these things into effect when you're drawing your pages. You have to make sure you've got room for speech panels. You have to make sure you've got room for special effects and that kind of thing, and work it all together. So if we go on, we're talking about panels here. This is moving right along, as Stan likes to write. We now introduce you to one of Marvel's many widely heralded close-ups, so called because the camera, meaning the reader's eye, has moved in about as close as possible. So he's spelling this out for you, and it's a good job as well. It's good that he does. Here we go. I've got what's in my close-up. What examples have I given to a close? So in my own book, Only Death Can Save Us, I have some close-ups down the bottom there. So you've got almost a splash page at the top there, a whole bunch of action going on, and then you zoom in and pick up the emotions or the action that's going on closer in. Or you can have an extreme close-up like this, where you go straight into Death's face, rather than a smaller close-up. And I've got a close-up there of female protagonist in Geezers of Titan, and these all add drama. It's that pacing that you get within your panels. This next type of panel, I'll read Stan's words, in which the reader's view of the scene is from farther away, enabling him to see, or them to see, the figures from head to toe, is called a medium shot. So I go back and take a look at the medium shots that I've got here. What medium shots have I got? So for instance, in Storm Chasers, I've got this panel of a medium shot. You can get everybody into the shot, and there's still room for your speech bubbles and for you to tell that story. And I've got a few others here. So for instance, this is a medium shot here. This is from a slightly higher angle, so you've got to mix up your angles while you're producing your pages and putting your panels together. Otherwise, every panel looks like it's from the same camera angle, and visually it becomes boring. And especially if you've got a slightly quieter scene, you really have to consider that, else it'll be very quick to bore your reader. And then again, I've got a couple of panels here where you've got full body shots. I don't know that I can remember who said it. It could have been any one of a number of great masters, it has to be said, but if you can, in your comic book pages, you must have at least one panel every page that has complete and full shots of people. No chopping feet off, no chopping heads off, no chopping arms off. Full shots, so they have a complete anatomy of at least one panel must show a full anatomy, preferably two. But at least one, so that it's not all just close in. Don't close in too much. Give the reader the ability to see the scene as a whole, and that actually comes through to this bottom shot, which is a long shot. In fact, since it's such an extreme wide angle scene, you might even call it a panoramic long shot, without anyone getting angry at you. There's another bit of fun that Stan Lee likes to write with. So I've got a wide shot here. I've got a couple of wide shots. Okay, so that's a really wide shot because this is out in space. This is Only Death Can Save Us, and you're coming into the halls of eternity, and that's a really wide angle shot there. Or I've got another one here in Interceptor, where it's like there's a forest in the background moving closer. You see Interceptor in the midground and then some rocks in the foreground. I think that's probably all I did for those. So let's move on to the last three for this chapter. The top one, when you're above the scene looking down at it, as in this panel, what else could you possibly call it but a bird's eye view? You can almost hear Stan saying it, bird's eye view. This book, it makes me smile every time I read this. Every time I come to this book, it makes me smile. It's a wonderful book. So here I have Spider-Man looking over the ledge up on a tall building down into to the buildings below, the streets below, and you can see that's that bird's eye view, and you get that extreme perspective. Something that's not quite as extreme perspective, but still technically it is over the shoulder here. of the villain looking down on Interceptor, who's chained on the floor and he's floating above him. So there's all kinds of ways of doing that, much like I was saying about having the midsection view where you change your angles even though it's still a midsection, because you're showing lots of things in the panel. You're showing full anatomy and full body so that you can get a good idea of what's going on. Much with the bird's eye view, it doesn't have to be, extreme like the Spider-Man view here. It can be closer up and closer in, like the Interceptor panel. On the other hand, when you're below the scene of action, as in this panel, where your eye level is somewhere near Spidey's heel, we're inclined to refer to it as a worm's eye view, and that's your worm's eye view. Pretty much says everything you need to know in the description of it, but I've got one worm's eye view here, and that's where I'm looking up from the Rainbow Bridge up to Heimdall, who's standing guard, and over Asgard, over the entrance to Asgard. This I did for Draw the Marvel Way. We're fortunate to have a go at this. It was a really enjoyable piece. But you can see from that piece, real world, where I used that and how that angle worked. But even more so when you're dropping that into a set of panels and it's changing up the angles, it's really creating an exciting, dynamic visual story for your reader to follow. And then a drawing in which the details are obscured by solid black or any other single tone or colour is called a silhouette. And now that we agree upon the language, let's get back to drawing the pictures. Well, that will be for the next episode, because this is the end of this chapter. And just before I sign off on this chapter, let's see if I've got any silhouettes. I've got one here from Draw the Marvel Way. Now, this isn't quite a silhouette. The idea being that there's a bright, obviously, star behind Galactus, but I'm picking out some details, so I'm kind of cheating on the silhouette here, just to play with the silhouette, play with the outline, and make it just pick out a little bit more interest in it. And then something in an actual panel from Interceptor. This is a mid panel, so you can see quite a bit of what's going on. You can see the whole figure up in the sky, and I've silhouetted it with just the eyes sparking out. So you can see how I've used a lot of these techniques and how all artists use these techniques. But I thought it would be a really good idea to run through these chapters and set out how much I loved this book and how much this book has affected my approach to comic book art, how I believe it can help absolutely any artist, whether they be experienced or not, just by flicking through those pages. And if you are experienced, just going through and refreshing and thinking, that's the way it was done, that's the way it should be done. Doesn't mean you have to copy that exactly, or you have to copy that style, or copy John Buscema, or do exactly what the book says. It's just this underpinning of comic book storytelling, and the approach to the style of superhero storytelling. It's not right for every genre, but this book still has so many great lessons just for drawing, just for getting things right. And that's why I think it's a book that every artist should have on their table. So that's it for the first chapter and for this first episode. Hopefully you've been enjoying it. Give the video a thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't, but whatever, a reaction would be really, really great. If you've got any comments, please do leave them. I'd love to speak to people about comic book art. If you've got any comments about my art or your own art, if you've got your own channel, make sure and leave a comment in the comments section. You can come over and find me at Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can also find me at russleach.com, comicbookblackbelt.com, and obviously onlydeathcansaveus.com, which is my new book, which is in production currently. Please sign up for the email subscription list. I mentioned it at the start of the video. That will really make a difference to me, so that I can keep people who are interested in this kind of stuff, interested in the channel, but especially interested in the book, up to date with what's going on and new launches and what have you. That's about it for me from now. Thanks very much to those people who have subscribed. Again, I'll keep saying this every time I talk about subscribers. It's absolutely humbling to have people subscribe to my channel, to listen to me, and to hopefully find the things that I say and the imagery that I show of some interest and of some help. If that works, then that's a great thing. So that's me for now. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you again in the dojo real soon for another video. Bye bye. Thanks for watching Comic Book Black Belt. If you've enjoyed the content from this video, please like, share or subscribe, and come over and follow me on Twitter. It's been great having you in the dojo. See you again soon.